We're almost to October of 2024, and I'm feeling ready to announce the best new photography product of 2024. Now, this is a prestigious award that I've never given out, but there has to be a first for everything. Let's look at the list of what came out this year already. The Canon EOS R1 and R5 Mark II, the Leica Q3 43, the Rollei 35 autofocus, the iPhone 16 Pro Max, the Fuji X100VI, the Leica SL3, the Fuji GFX 100S Mark II, the Hasselblad X2D 100C Earth Explorer, Film Ferrania released P33, the Pentax 17, and the new printer, Canon Pro 1100. But one of these products stands above the rest. The Best New Product Photography 2024 award goes to the Pentax 17. All right, let's look at some of these reviews by actual users on BH Photo. Right, here we go. Nathan says, using the camera is like in Ratatouille when Anton Ego eats the ratatouille. Jacob says, it's a fun portable camera I've started keeping in the car to take with me on adventures. Cameron says, thus far I'm getting everything I hoped for out of this camera. I'm satisfied with the build quality and materials, and the photos I'm getting are sharp and expose well when I'm operating properly. Zone focus has a bit of a learning curve, and you may need a few rolls before you become an expert. It's going to feel more complex if graduating from a basic point and shoot. It's less predictable than an SLR, but you get more control than a point and shoot in a similarly small package. Being able to adjust focus, push pull, select ISO, etc. makes it a more manual and customizable camera. Daniel, not me, says, a great camera, unique experience. Great new camera. I've owned a lot of great film cameras. List them out. And this camera really offers a unique experience. I've had other half-frame cameras, and this is definitely a step above in image quality and perfectly fine to print up to 13 by 19. I've discovered it's better to think of it as an autofocus camera with zones instead of a focus point. AG says, getting me interested in film. I've always enjoyed instant photography like Polaroid and Fuji Instax, but have been waiting for a more serious 35mm camera to come out again. It's been a great piece of enjoyment for me and is solidly built. Would definitely buy again, and I can easily recommend it. Eric says, a great camera with a great lens that is easy to use and is capable of creating images I really like. And I find creating the half-frame diptychs fun, so I am a bit biased. R says, well built, surprisingly fun. I wasn't sold on the zone focus at first, but it's a non-issue after a couple of shots. Tim says, I bought this for my wife, who has not shot film in about 20 years. I shoot a lot of film, and she was interested, but didn't want anything big, heavy, or complicated to use. This camera fit the bill perfectly. It is light, easy to use, and it takes great pictures. Dylan, happy. I never realized how much I missed film photography until I got back into it a few years ago. I still had my Nikon 800 8S from the 90s. It didn't take long for me to acquire other used cameras, but it's always a gamble going used. This came from Pentax. This camera from Pentax is a very welcome thing in 2024. It's exactly what I would want in a 35mm film camera. Not necessarily, but I very much get why they made the choices they did. I've always wanted a half-frame camera, so that alone, this was a must-buy for me. This camera seems well made. I don't have a problem with the choice of materials used. Loading film is easy, and the film advance feels smooth. Manual ISO selection is welcome, and the inclusion of exposure compensation dial is an excellent choice. The exposed modes available are well thought out and give you enough options, although that particular dial could use a lock, so you don't accidentally change it when winding film like I've done a few times already. The zone focusing system isn't what I personally would prefer. Maybe it will grow on me over time. 5 stars. Mark says, learning curve. This is truly retro. Don't forget to remove the lens cap. 5 stars. The learning curve is about removing the lens cap. Right? So, Leland says, 5 stars, it's time for film. I do a lot of photography. For digital, I use a Canon R8 and an R100. For film, I've been using the following. List them out. I bought the Pentax 17 to support Pentax's effort. I didn't want a half-frame, scale-focusing camera, but I love this camera as much as my vintage Pentaxes and has given me a new format to play with. That engages me as a photographer. $499 isn't expensive for what you're getting. The price is very fair. It can be a simple point-and-shoot or very adjustable creative camera. Like my Canon R100, it's much more sophisticated than seemingly simplicity would suggest. The quality of the Pentax 17 is excellent, and everything about it is intelligently thought out. Shooting with it is simple and direct. It feels light but very solid. It handles a lot like a vintage Pentax SLR, but is silent. Eddie says a really fun camera to use. The camera enables me to practice shooting in a different way. I think a lot more about taking a photo. It's very light, so I can carry it all day and don't really need to worry about battery life. I also really love the simplification and lack of features. The shooting experience is actually inspiring me to think the same way when using my digital cameras. Daniel, also not me, 5 stars, fun and easy to use. I'm really enjoying this camera. For me, it's replacing an old Olympus Pen EE from the 1960s. They're both half-frame. Unsurprisingly, the Pentax 17 is superior in every way. The light meter and aperture and shutter can handle a much wider range of lighting conditions and much wider range of film ISO settings. The result is that I can actually use the camera in a lot of situations where my pen would have just given up. The Pentax 17 is very comfortable and pleasant. It is made of plastic. Yeah, the top and bottom plates are metal, but they don't add weight to the camera, so they don't feel like metal. At the same time, this camera definitely does not feel like those cheap $50 toy cameras you see in the market. The zone focusing system is new to me, and sometimes I forget to change the distance, but I'm actually enjoying the tactile feel, and I'm gradually getting better at it. My only quibble is that the camera shutter is too quiet. My wife and I have both been using it, and we truly love it. Tad says, 5 stars, superb little camera. I bought this camera for the vertical frame format and came away really loving it. Jacqueline says, 5 stars, fun shooting. It was easily understandable and fun to shoot photos. Brian, 5 stars, better than expected. Unboxing, first impression. After watching many review videos on YouTube, I was expecting a cheap feeling camera. Yes, there's a lot of plastic, but the camera has a little bit of weight to it from the top and the bottom plate. It feels solid. The grip is nice, feels good in the hand. Would have been perfect if the leather-type material in the front went all the way around. But the dials feel nice, and loading the film was easy. Morgan, 5 stars, great film camera. This is my first ever film camera, and I'm very happy with my purchase. I love that it's a half frame, and I get double the exposures. It's also really good quality. The camera has a little weight to it, but not super heavy like most film cameras. I would highly recommend. And lastly, the only review that was not 5 stars is a 4-star review that says, from Hank, super fun nostalgia. I had many a point-and-shoot camera when I was a teenager in the 90s and zeros, but over the last 20 years, I've only been using digital. This took me back. It was fun having a camera that shoots film but with half frames, so I felt a little less worried about missing a shot. It was weird after all this time having to go to a lab and get film developed, but the reward of getting negatives back, scanning, and seeing the distinct film look was great. I don't know if this is for everyone, but it really scratched my nostalgia itch, and that made it worth it for me. Okay, that is the one negative review. And that's not negative. That's somebody who's just not willing to give out 5 stars. So yeah, that's it. The Danmar's best new product in photography for 2024 is the Pentax 17.